I was in love with a guy that was much, much older than me, and my parents were really not keen. I would have married him if he would have asked. So I said to my parents, look, the only way forward that I can see us becoming a family again is, why don't if I go traveling for 6 months or maybe a year and then come back and so I did. So then I came to the UK.
Andrea Antonieta Schroeder left Chile and moved to the UK with a broken heart to try to forget a man with whom she was in love. This is Writer's Mosaic, What We Leave We Carry, the series that tells the true life stories of migration to the UK.
I was born in Santiago in Chile. We didn't live in Santiago, but that's where I was born, and then kind of we went 200 kilometers south. That's where my home was. Home was mom and dad and my older sister. The first house that I lived in was enormous, was an old house from a winery that my dad was the winemaker for, and it was just this feeling of enormity. My parents are both Germans, so I had a notion of what Europe was like, and we had my grandparents from my dad's side that came to visit us every year for 3 months. So we had a relation with a foreign language that was German, of course. We came a few times when I was little to Europe, kind of like before I was 9, but England wasn't in my horizons. My parents, both of them worked, and we had an adorable person that looked after us, and my parents felt really, really aware of not making her feel excluded. They told us off, always in German. Whenever someone talks to me in German, it's like, what have I done now? but yeah, Spanish was the language that we spoke at home. I went to Santiago, to the main city, and studied psychology there for 5 years. I became a psychologist, but I wanted to study art. They said to me, Andrea, go and do something kind of like that. You're going to be able to fend for yourself in life first, and we pay for you to study art as a second degree. When I was about to start, or maybe already started, I don't know, kind of my 3rd year at uni, we had a little bit of a family crisis because I was in love with a guy that was much, much older than me, and my parents were really not keen. I would have married him if he would have asked. So I said to my parents, look, the only way forward that I can see us becoming a family again is, why don't if I go traveling for 6 months or maybe a year and then come back and so I did. So then I came to the UK. And when I was coming around to be 6 months, I knew that I was going to go back to Chile and that Francisco was not going to be something from the past. So I decided to stay a year. And then I met John, that is my first husband. But I went back to Chile for 2 years to finish my degrees. Kind of like we traveled all the time with John, and then I settled here. John was a Londoner, and he was kind of like, I cannot live anywhere else. And so that's how I made it here. I didn't want to move to England at all. I was perfectly happy in Chile. It was a little bit random. My parents came just when I had met John, so I had been here kind of like a little bit over 6 months. And they invited him to go to a restaurant for dinner. And then kind of like when we went back to the hotel, my mom said, well, I think that this is it, Andrea. John said that he won't move from here, and you're not going to want to leave him either. So, and I was going, well, let's see what happens. So it happened quite organically. But yeah, I think that they had the impression when they first met John that I had found something in England that I had not been able to find in Chile. I was comfortable. I was doing all sorts, kind of like I had 3 jobs. I was kind of like, oh my gosh, working so hard to be able to make things work. But I loved it. I loved it. It was just what I felt comfortable doing. I lived most of the time in Brick Lane, kind of like that is in the East End. And so every day there was something new happening, something. One of the things that I found incredible about London was the freedom. I met John because I went to this life drawing session and he was the coordinator. And kind of like, I don't know, I had been there, like going there for, I don't know, 10 times or whatever, and the model didn't show up. And in the second week in a row kind of thing, the model didn't show up, and people that were getting a little bit like, oh, is this going to start happening now often? And so I said to John, I'm your model. I model for you. And so it was that freedom that I would have never had in Chile. Never. And John was, he had a project that coordinated a lot of artists. So he was constantly being invited to all the openings. And so life was just kind of mad. It was from work to an opening to back to work. It was kind of like, no, but I loved that time. I'm really fond of London as a city. I love the fact that it has combined so many people from different places, that everyone somehow seems to flow, and what it produces is amazing. I was working with the homeless. I was working as a resettlement worker. That was my main job. When I first came to the UK, I did all sorts, bars, but then kind of like once I decided to stay, I started working with the homeless, and that was also really, really amazing for me, because I come from a really sheltered background, and homelessness is something that doesn't exist in Chile. Maybe now is starting slowly to develop, but in Chile the feeling of the family, kind of, if you've got a drunk uncle kind of thing that you don't really want him to be your uncle, he would come and live with you anyway, kind of like, because that's the way that families work. So for me, kind of like all this concept that there were people living rough or in hostels, and it was, gosh, society works in a really different way, and in a way that there's, I think that I was really shocked by being on one hand fascinated by England and London and kind of like all the fun side of it, but on the other hand by this population that was not small of people that had had so much hardship in their lives and how lonely they were. So I worked for the homeless for 5 years, and I have to say that for me it was just what I needed. It was just kind of like, it opened a side of me that I think that if I would not have worked with them and kind of like, and really got to know their lives, and I would have never opened up to realize that that was something that existed so ingrained. We grew up in a house that my mom was a war child, my parents, both of them. So we never ever left anything on our plates that would be the breaking of any dinner. It was like, oh, I don't like spinach. And it was like, and when have we asked if you like it or not? Eat it. So I grew up in a house eating absolutely everything. So when I came to London, kind of thing, I was already used to eat everything. And Chile kind of like is a place that has taken lots of external kind of food influences. So it wasn't that new, but kind of course, all the Indian type of thing. I got fascinated by it, and yeah, it was delicious. We have always managed to go to Chile at least once a year, and my parents and siblings kind of like they come. My parents now stop. I think that they may have stopped coming, but the last time that they were here was Christmas. So kind of like we go there once a year and they come here once a year. That has been the tonic. But now I'm going to Chile again, and we've decided that I'm going to go to Chile now twice a year by myself because my parents are getting on. I have always been really lucky in that respect, that my connection with Chile is really live. Before we got married with John had a really tricky childhood. And for me, having children was essential. Since I was a little girl, I had wanted to have my own children. So we spoke about it at length with John, and John was kind of like, Andrea, when the time comes, we'll have them. I'm not ready yet, but the time will come. And then the time never came. So it was a sad ending, but it was what I needed to do, I think. I thought, I'm going home now. I never intended to stay in the UK in the first place. I thought that I was coming here just to change my mind switch, and that I was going to go back to Chile, kind of thing. And so when I decided to split up with John, I was kind of like, well, there's one good thing that is happening out of this. You're going to go back to Chile. And then I went to Glastonbury and met Tim. And after 5 minutes of being together with Tim, we met at breakfast. It's kind of like, sort of, gosh, I don't really know, but I think that his eyes are kind of like really looking at me with some other intentions. I said to him, Tim, I'm really sorry, but if I can read your eyes correctly, can you stop looking at me, because I'm going to go to Chile. And so he said to me, well, it doesn't matter, I'll follow you wherever you want to go. And so kind of that happened in the first 5 minutes. Like we traveled together, we were together in Sri Lanka for the tsunami, and then we stopped traveling after the tsunami. We went back to Sri Lanka to help for 2 months. But then after that, it was like, Tim, do you know what? Now I really want to go home. And so we went. Tim really tried to settle. Tim loved Chile. But after 3 years, kind of, it was a difficult place for someone that didn't speak Spanish well enough. And after like 3 years, we had Samuel, and I was pregnant of Julie, and Tim stopped to be able to sleep. And I was like, kind of like, something wrong in here. And he was kind of like, yeah, I cannot stand that in here you are the main breadwinner, and I've been wanting to be the main breadwinner, and if you've been wanting to be a mother all your life, kind of, you can, I'm sure that you don't want to not work, but in here everything is happening upside down, kind of thing. I need to be able to provide better for my family than we're doing now. So I said to him, Tim, look, go back to England, get a job, and then kind of we'll move there. I had already found the person that I was sure that we were going to spend the rest of our lives together. So it was, you know what, now it's time for you to make a completely different compromise, it felt. But it was, flow into it, because this is what you need to do now. Tim had a job in Hove, and that's where we lived for the first year and a half. I thought that it was cosmopolitan, and I was in a completely different period of my life. I had kind of like, Samuelito was a small baby, I was pregnant of Julie. The sea was there, I loved the sea, so that was lovely, and it was very different to Brick Lane, but it was homely somehow. Things went well with Tim's job, and we had saved quite a bit, so we started looking to buy somewhere, and I was determined that I was not going to move from that area. But when we went to see the house number 33, Tim said to me, "Andrea, I'm really sorry, but this is the last house that I'll see in this kind of like area, kind of thing. We need to expand the radio, kind of like put 10 miles kind of like in Rightmove and see what comes up." And in Worthing ticked all the boxes. It had good schools, good hospital, a good library, and the sea. So it was like, well, actually, and the properties were much, much more affordable. So I went to a caring agency and I said, "Can I be a carer for 6 months?" And so I did. And that was was just what I needed. At the beginning, I would say quite a few of them were a little bit like, "Oh, you weren't born here." But then, and this is what I have found throughout my UK experiences, sometimes there is a little bit of resistance, but then it's, well, no, I wasn't born in here, but I was born, I'm a human being, I get the same things that you do, and so let's get on with the job rather than and so I think that I became a really popular carer, and so some of them kind of like used to laugh and say, "Oh, kind of like, do you remember the first time that you came here, that I wasn't very friendly?" But they were mostly really great. I think that when you are a carer, and of course it's easier to care for some people rather than others, for the grateful ones and the people that are really, but there were plenty of them that really appreciated kind of you doing maybe a little bit more, or taking them for a little bit of a longer walk, or so but I have felt sometimes a little bit of resistance from people, but hey ho, I think that is just, I don't know, when I talk to some of the people that I am still in contact in Chile, that outside of my family kind of thing, and they somehow describe their experience with immigrants in their country, and I said to them, "Well, I am an immigrant in England," and they're like, kind of like, "Oh, but really?" And it's kind of like, "Yes, really, and my parents are immigrant in Chile too." I'm Chilean. Chile is my home. When I go to Germany, I feel more of a foreigner than I feel in England. And in England, I feel very much, and this house is my home. I don't have this in Chile. So Samuelito was born in Chile and Julie was born here. They tend to kind of like to take the mickey one out of the other, but Julie hates it so much not to be Chilean. They're both really, really proud Chileans. I say to them, "Guys, it doesn't matter, have got both a Chilean mother, Chilean passport, like you're both Chileans. But so yeah, no, they love Chile. They love Chile. I've got a really fun family. So my parents have always been fun, regardless of now they're getting on a little bit. My mom has always been difficult, but that has always. My mom was really, really fun. So she was difficult but fun. And my siblings have all got children, and we're really kind of close together family. So my children, I think that their Chilean family is really important for them. I think that for them it's going to be a little bit trickier maybe to identify it with one place or the other, because on the other hand, England has given them all their experiences in a routinary life type thing. So I do speak Spanish with them all the time. It's been difficult at times, but now, oh my gosh, they love it. They love it. And we've got a secret language that we can go anywhere and they can say to me whatever they think. No, it's great. It's great. And when they go to Chile, they don't need anyone to speak a different language for them. So no, it's great. I think that this is part of me being an immigrant and being aware of being an immigrant. For example, when Brexit happened, oh my gosh, I was devastated. I kind of like cried on my way to school, walking with the children. I was like, Andrea, please put yourself together. This is not the way to face this kind of like situation. But it really, for me, kind of like on an emotional kind of understanding of it, was that there was more than 50% of people in the UK that somehow had a problem with immigration. And I have always been really aware that that is exactly what I am. So it was, oh my gosh, and Worthing was really, really, really pro-Brexit. So it was like, oh, okay. But this house is, I'm queen here. And also the children, for example, oh my gosh, whenever we speak about the moving house or whatever, they say to us, look, talk about anything except moving house. We love poultice. Poultice is somehow where we all identified home. I think that in the whole, I am really grateful of my experience in this country, and that is completely separated from any political discourse. But I have always been treated as a person with respect. Through my illnesses, I was so aware that I don't know, I remember arriving to the NHS, because I have had to be loads of time in hospitals, and saying to the doctor, shouldn't I go back home? And he said to me, well, how long have you been living in this country for? And I was kind of like, I don't know, 10 years or 12 years. He said to me, would you call this home? And I was like, yeah. And have you contributed in some way? Do you have children? Do you work? And I was like, yeah. And he said to me, then what you need to do is to relax and let us. You are here and you are now. So I think that in terms of course, there are things that could be different and could be better. For example, for the pandemic, I wanted to go to Chile, and I kind of like called the surgery, and I got this really relentless secretary telling me that I should have needed to let them know with a month, because they needed to write a letter for me. And I said to Tim, can you call? Because I'm sure that they are going to facilitate you the paper a lot quicker. And Tim found the same secretary, answered the phone, and they said to him, please come and collect it this evening, sir. And I was like, oh, that really hurt, because I was respectful, and the reply that we both got is so different. But I think that you're going to find problems wherever you are. In the whole, I think that I've been really, really lucky, and Yeah, and I'm really lucky to have my team, to have my children, to have been able to form the family that I wanted. So no, I'm content.
Andrea Antonieta Schroeder was talking to Ellie Doby.